Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're going to talk about Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K Full Frame. Yes, that's the name. So let's dive deep into it. So this puppy has no name, and I used to think other companies were bad at naming until I read their name. So their name is literally, not joking, is 6K Full Frame. That's their name, 6K Full Frame. So Blackmagic goes full frame. Back in the days, they were the company that was like micro four third for the win, and now they're like, nope, just no. So basically, they're finally reaching this level, full frame level. We were there, we always knew full frame is better, but finally they have come around to it. So what are they offering? Because be mindful, there are three major companies that is offering proper full frame options: Canon, Nikon, and Sony. And Canon and Sony both are also opening, providing some cinema grade option. So what is this company providing? This company is providing low cost cinema camera. Now, what does low cost here means? It simply means 2,50,000 rupees, or $2,600 basically in US. So what does it mean when you say a camera is cinema camera? If it's a proper cinema camera, it generally will have a sensor that is much lower resolution compared to what it could be. Like if it could be 60 megapixel, it won't be, because be mindful, while K sounds impressive like 4K, it's only 8 megapixel. And even if you are like, no, 4K translates to 8 megapixel. If you take 8K, it translates to only 33 megapixel. Majority of the full frame can easily exceed that megapixel limit. So that's why sensors that are made for cinema camera, they are generally lower resolution. So you could literally buy latest and greatest RE cameras that would literally have a sensor that is barely 8 megapixel. So you have to understand, they are generally focused on one thing and doing it well. So sensors are generally much lower basically resolution. It does give them much better sensitivity, much better dynamic range in principle, if your electronics is good. And files would be closer to raw. Now ideally full raw, but full raw is a bit too difficult. So most companies will give, even Red apparently has a patent on it, where they will give you raw file which is compressed losslessly. Most companies will like for example RE itself will just give you raw frames, like each frame would be an image that is just raw. So raw is very difficult to manage, so to say. So this company has their own lossy but raw file. So you can do white balance change, you can do exposure latitude adjustments, you can do a lot of things, but it's not pure lossless. So meaning the sensor, you are still losing some amount of data. Does that matter? No, 99.99% of the time it does not matter. So file would be as close to raw as possible, and every aspect of the camera body would be designed for video. For example, the interface, touch interface, everything is focused on video. It has false color, it has everything that needs to be there, especially metadata entry, because the display is so huge you can actually use it. Touchscreen also you can use it. It's very good for video. And if you inject linear time code through a audio jack, it has the brains inside where it will be like, okay, I got this is a time code, let's not record it as an audio channel, let's record it as time code metadata. Does that matter? Actually yes, because if you have that file where time code data is a metadata layer, all NLE, non-linear editing suites will directly work with that directly. Yeah, be it Adobe, be it DaVinci, be it Final Cut, it will work all of them without any hassle. But if you have like directly audio going as a audio channel, then you have to go to DaVinci Resolve to convert it, or go to some other tentacle sync app where to convert that. So everything about this puppy is designed for video. So what are the specs of this puppy? Well, it's an approximate 24 megapixel. I could not find the exact detail sheet, but again, it's acceptable for like 6K. 4K is 8 megapixel, 6K is like 24, and 8K is 33 megapixel. So approximately 24 megapixel full frame, L mount. Now they have joined the L mount alliance, and you were like, what the hell is L mount? Sigma. So Sigma will make lenses and cameras that will be using this mount. Leica, which will be using the camera and lenses, which will use this mount. Panasonic, which will make lenses and cameras for this. So basically these three companies are the major players that will make L mount equipments, cameras and lenses. So this can absorb all of those lenses natively. On top of that, you can add lot of adapters, not on every design, but lot of designs you can add adapters that will allow you to use other things, specifically Canon EF mounts. So it can be done. So do not be like, okay, I have to buy like let's say you have Canon EF lineup, you do not have to worry, you just have to buy extra adapter. Now they have upgraded the card slot. In the last version of this puppy, the card slot was C fast card slots, which were a flop format which never actually worked. So now they have upgraded to latest format which actually does work, which is C fast express type B. Other than Sony, which is ironic given the fact that Sony is the one who made the format, everybody using this. Nikon, Panasonic, Canon, Fuji, Sony, and Blackmagic, all of them are using this format. So thankfully, this is actually now available. Now, what's the interesting part about this? This puppy is fast. Like, it does not give you that much capacity, but this puppy is fast. Why? It's literally NVMe SSD, literally Control C, Control V, NVMe protocol. So it has like a type B means two PCI channel. Type A means one channel, which is the Sony's format. That is type A, C fast type A. There is C fast type C, which is 4 channel, but I have not seen it. That's supposed to be reserved for cinema camera, but I have not seen any physical manifestation. I have seen A was introduced by Sony, B has been already in the market for quite some time. So B is a much better economical format, and it does allow you to shoot raw footages for very long duration, assuming you have space, because a raw file on this puppy can easily cross around 600 megabytes, not small bits, bytes per second. So it will fill up this puppy very quickly. But here's the deal. Majority of the people who are buying such a cheap camera will not be able to afford very expensive like CFast Express cards. Even if you can buy a CFast, you will barely have like 160 gigabyte card capacity. Card is the weak link here. So they have USB-C SSD. I'm genuinely saddened by the fact that neither Sony nor Canon nor Nikon does this as a default. Is that just connect a goddamn SSD. Like, we have this technology. This is cheap in terms of speed. Basically, let's say I give you a limit 1 gigabytes per second read and write speed. USB-C interface will give you the fastest, most cost-effective, reliable solution. So why the heck we are stuck with this? It's like, just give USB-C. Thankfully, Panasonic does that. But almost other brands is like, what if we F the customer? It's like, what if you just give USB-C? So thankfully they have that. Optical low pass filter, now is that necessary? No. Back in the days of very low spatial resolution, yes, it was necessary. Spatial resolution, how many pixels are there? So full HD, it was kind of necessary. But once we start to touch 4K, 6K, 8K, the necessity goes down. And not to mention, once you have that sort of resolution, like let's say 4K, the lens itself is acting like a pseudo low pass filter. At 8K and at 12K, yeah, you really don't need it, because the lens itself is the bottleneck, and the pattern that are like a refined pattern that creates the moire effect, that is literally being blurred by the lens itself. So why does it have it? It just has it. Like, but again, it is an extra layer of defense, which in some scenario you would be like very lucky that, hey, at least it had it. In some scenarios you will be like, me good, me happy because it has it. It was far more important back in the days. Now we have a high enough resolution, it does not matter. The lens itself is acting that buffer, so to say. But it does have that. For some scenarios, people will like, shut up, take money. However, it no longer has internal ND, which is a much bigger deal, and it has 6K open gate. Open gate means full sensor. You just like Control C, Control V the sensor. You do not go with 16:9, you do not do squish or crop into it. You just like full sensor, Control C, Control V. It will give you raw files at 36 FPS. Now you will be like, 36 FPS does not sound that great. Yeah, the FPS part of this camera is underwhelming to say the least. Like, even if you crop the hell out of it, you can only go up to 120 FPS. That is at full HD. For camera that is released in 2023, that seems at least 1 or 2 generations behind. Because be mindful, at this sort of price range, if you're willing to push your budget a little bit, you will end up with cameras that can do 4K 120 FPS. And full HD easily 240. So and it's not just recent cameras, like quite some times. So that's why it feels 1 generation old. And be mindful, if you look at the 6K Pro variant, it can do 6K open gate with 60 FPS. So it's very odd. Thankfully, it is a professional camera, so it has audio, a mic input, it has a headphone output, it has full size HDMI, it has USB-C, which can be used for basically riding a SSD. It does have 2 mics input with proper XLR system. Again, for professional people, shut up, take money. For other people, they will be more likely using that mic system. And it does have DC input, 12 volt DC input, so you can run it from big power banks or like direct AC system for as long as you need to. So these are the specs. And I'm genuinely happy. At least Blackmagic does understand one thing. We have display technology. Like, this display is genuinely leaps and bounds ahead of every other camera company. Like, every other camera company is like, what if we give 1950s technology? to customer, and if the customer will read. So what if we do dots? It's like dots does not mean anything. You could literally have like 4 dots making into 1 pixel. So fundamentally it's like million dots and all that is barely 720p, barely. This puppy, full HD and 1200 nits of brightness, so it can actually be visible with enough color contrast that is like actually useful in sunset, outdoor lighting. Generally, in this regard, every camera company is just garbage. Like, I just wish they would have like flip up or flip side, but this is actually useful for people. So people who are buying this, they do not always need to, okay, I bought this, now I have to buy an external monitor. Like, the monitor here is actually good. So these are the specs of this puppy. However, all things considered, taking all the considerable data, it's a very odd camera. Why? Because you can go back to Blackmagic design Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. Who the hell names this puppy? It's $2,500, almost the same price as this puppy, Blackmagic design Cinema Camera 6K full frame. So the price is the same. Now, what would be you losing if you go into like the older variant? Well, you will be compromising the sensor size. So sensor will go from full frame to APS-C. So 35mm film, basically smaller. You will get it, but it will be cropped sensor. What are the benefits if you go with that? Well, you will get EF mount, which is the most commonly used lens mount available. So for many people, shut up, take money just for the lens mount. You do not, if you can avoid it, you should avoid it. It's one of those things. It's like, do I really need to have extra adapter? And be mindful, adapters are not free, you have to buy them. So having EF mount by default, very important. Be mindful, red cameras are also switching to EF mount. For that is primary reason for that. Like, they are going to Sony, even Sony's M mounts, not M mount, E mounts, for this exact reason. Canon lenses sell a lot more, so they're like, just okay, let's use it. So having that Canon EF mount directly is shut up, take money. With it also has internal ND. That is genuinely useful, because be mindful, if you're buying a cinema camera of this level, your needs are very high, but you do not have budget. Now, how the heck, if your budget is so low, you're gonna afford a matte box with a giant ND filter on front? Like, can it be bought? Absolutely. But here's the deal. If you're buying a camera that is this cost, likelihood of you doing that is, let's just say, low. So that's very genuinely odd. And if RE does that, it's like, yeah, RE's price is so high that ND filter is free at that point. This, be mindful, cinema grade ND filters, they actually cost hundreds of dollars. And especially with the giant flat panel ones, they are very high quality, but cost lol. So, and if you have inbuilt, it also comes with another benefit. That means every lens you put on, let's say you have 5 lenses, every lens has ND. Either you have to buy a matte box that gives you all that, or you have to literally buy discs with all of them, which is very expensive. So that would be for many people, especially if they shoot outdoor bright sunlight, most of the time they are like, shut up, take money. Then it has ProRes. That is genuinely useful, because if you have Blackmagic RAW and ProRes RAW, even if ProRes comes with certain resolution limitation, most of the time people will like, just give me ProRes. ProRes is a far more standard format for most of the NLEs, meaning you do not have to like, I have to be in DaVinci to play it. It's just like, plug it in, it will work. If it does not work, it's a fault with the NLE, not the fault of the codecs. So ProRes is desirable by everybody for this exact reason. It will work in Apple, it will work in basically Adobe, it will work with DaVinci, it will work with everywhere, Final Cut, everything, it will work. So people are like, shut up, take money. So all these 3 factors combined, a proper lens mount, the internal ND, and the ProRes, makes it far more practical option for majority of people, rather than going into 6K full frame. And the full frame also has rolling shutter, which is, again, compared to the smaller one, of course it makes sense, because I think if they have the same sort of sensor processor for readout, the speed gap would not be that much. The ideal would be a global shutter, but global shutters does reduce your pixel size, physically shrinks the pixel size, because that site has capacitors now, so physically shrinks it, so quality does go down a bit, but it gives you perfect readout. So it's a pros and cons. But if you want to have a rolling shutter and still get very sharp readout, you can improve it by having much better readout speed. It does not have that. Panasonic does very good readout speed, and Sony does have stacked sensor that has even better readout speed, but they're just a raw sensor, so output is underwhelming, to say the least. It's not useless, it's just like, you would have wished for something better, let's just say that. So rolling shutter is not great. Then we come to the design philosophy of this camera. It literally looks like they took this puppy 6K Pro and they're like, I want full frame in this without changing the price. So they literally compromised on usability. There are many things that makes it less user friendly. For example, FPS, which is desirable nowadays, especially if you are shooting music videos or basically ads. People generally prefer high FPS. Not having that, even 60 FPS, it's like, really? Or like 120 FPS, that's like, that's bad. And having only 13 stops of dynamic range. Be mindful, 13 stops, they are saying that they have 13 stops, which is like for a full frame sensor. Nowadays, especially after with Sony and Canon, what they have actually launched in the public, it's like not really a good idea, like especially in 2023. So dynamic range is low, which says that most likely the sensor they are physically using is a bit older in generation. So that's odd. That's odd. And in terms of the Kodak limitation, this camera is kind of the same price where hobbyists can get into it, YouTubers can get into it. So not having other option than, like, I get it, like this is a pro camera, like in the name. So you have Blackmagic RAW and you have ProRes RAW. Awesome. Here you have Blackmagic RAW. Why don't you have ProRes RAW? Again, whatever your reason may be, it's a stupid reason. It should have been there. Most likely it's because you have to get in bed with Apple and Apple will do this to you. So let's say they did not pay the Apple. Okay, you could have put something else there, like for example, right now if you want MP4 files, it only gonna give you a proxy. That's not desirable. You could like raw proxy. There is like raw is here, proxy is here. There is a lot of things in between you can have. You can have all eye compressed system. For majority of people, that's what's more than good enough. Like even in this scenario, I'm shooting in all eye, and that's a Canon 800D, the very low grade camera. Like you can easily have all eye formats. And yes, I do understand for H.264 you have to pay. They have paid it, so it does have H.264 codecs. If you want to pay for H.265, you have to pay a bit more. Okay, let's say you did not do that. Why didn't you added AV1? AV1 is free and open source for this exact reason, because H.256 is so messy in terms of patent. People are like, just okay, let's just yeet that puppy and let's just go to AV1. So you do not have any option raw and proxy, like nothing in between. That is genuinely odd. Like, because be mindful, raw requires processing before it's actually useful. So really bad. No gen lock, which again, gen lock is important for if you want to do multi-camera setup, especially for long duration. And no redundant recording. It can, in principle, it can record on USB and the card itself, but it can never do both of them at the same time, which again, for documentary shooting, it's playing with fire. It's one of those things that it only has to happen to you once, and after that you will be like, I understand why every server company always have to double or triple redundancy. Every professional camera has dual redundancy. So you'll understand that hard way. And at least one thing I have to say, that they have copied one good thing from Fuji, is like the triple battery design. I have no idea why the heck Canon, Nikon and Sony, they are like, what if we smoke weed? It's like, dude, just if the battery is there, let it be there and put contacts there. Contact on the bottom. The end. You will have 3 batteries. It will be much easier, much simpler to install. Right now, what you have to do in all other camera companies is like open the battery door, physically remove the battery door, put something in there, and then stow away the battery door. At least in modern designs, they have a slot in the dummy battery that goes inside, a slot where you can put in the battery cover. It took them like 2010, I think. That's when they started doing that. This is much better. At least they have copied that good design where it's like, okay, 3 batteries, awesome. Because be mindful, this puppy runs through battery like there is no tomorrow. It's a cinema camera. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's very odd. I think like they literally had a deadline where it's like, this is the price that we have to hit. Do whatever you have to do to reach that. Like they should have paid for ProRes. They should have, most likely they should have increased the price by $500 and made actually a competent camera. Because internal ND, I do understand the sensor is bigger, but again, you can have electronic ND rather than having multiple slots. You can have one empty and one electronic ND, which that's how Sony does that in FX9 if I'm not mistaken. And it does allow them electronic variable ND. Every lens works with it and is desirable. So if they have increased the price a little bit more and made it far more competent, it would be easy to use. Let's just say it that way. It's just, especially with the codecs, it's like, it's just one codex. So for whom this camera is made? Well, you have to understand that whenever you are talking about a camera like this, it's all manual. Do not worry about autofocus. Do not worry about image stabilization, because it has none of it. You do not have to worry about, like, even if, like, what if the lens has, like, let's say you put a EF lens, it has actual image stabilization. Would it work? Yes and no. Yes, it will try to work, but no, because it does not have true communication like Canon cameras. So it won't be as optimum as it should be. So most likely you're going to use a gimbal or you're going to use a rig, so you have to be mindful. Autofocus, again, tap to autofocus. If you are in a point where you are comparing autofocus between Sony and Canon, yeah, you're never going to be like, no, no, just no, don't waste time on it. So it's a different kind of ecosystem, and it does require post processing. You cannot just take the file and just like done. You can with a proxy file, but generally not advisable. So this is one of a different tool set where it's like it is expecting a bit more love from your end before it delivers you the file. So low cost means nothing. Be very mindful. Low cost means nothing if it's not suits you. If it's not a tool, if it's not a right fit, it's like, okay, I bought this hyper expensive shoe, but it does not fit your legs. It's useless. Same thing here. It's just because it's low cost does not mean you have to buy it. You may find, hey, paying a bit more for some other systems, be it Canon, be it Sony, may be far more desirable to you. So be very mindful. So for whom this camera is made? Well, this camera is made for specifically aspiring cinematographer, meaning if you really want to understand how proper cinema works, because be mindful, proper cinema also relies on manual focus, also relies on gimbals and jigs to do image stabilization, also requires on LUT corrections and basically raw file management, and a lot of metadata. This big screen, you can type the metadata there. So if you are in that pipeline, this is good. Like, can you use this for wedding photography, wedding videography? You should not, but you can. You should, like, it's not right tool for that. But if you are learning, if you are a student, you're like, hey, I want to get into the world of advertisements, I want to get into the world of music videos, I want to get into that ecosystem where you are spending time with your work, you may find this tool to be right for you. But for majority of people, I will say give it a pass, because it's like, it's not a bad tool, it's just not made for mortal peoples. Yes, the cost is attractive, but after buying it, you may find, oh, 600 megabytes per second is much brutal on my hard drive than I thought. So be very mindful of that. So this was my presentation on basically Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K full frame. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst a friend. That will help me out. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.